Hello.
Welcome back.
Good to see you all.
And it is nice to be seen again.
And it's
Yay!
nice to see you two on here, having you back. Missed you last week.
Yeah. I was sad to miss out.
Well, I think we coped admirably.
we did. Well, here we are then, week 4, no theme, it's just bog standard dancing numbers, music and dancing. So, what do we think as an episode before we go into it?
I thought it was brilliant. Really, really lots of good dancing. Really enjoyable show.
Yeah, the standard of dancing was better. And it just goes to show how much having a themed week often throws the dancing off kilter.
Yeah, even from my sort of newness to Strictly, I felt yesterday the standard was definitely higher, and there was some stunning dances, weren't there? But let's get into it then, because we've got lots to talk about. As always, we talk about Tess and Claudia first. There they are, black and red.
I loved Tessa's suit. I just thought it was
It was
absolutely
it was like a dinner jacket, wasn't it? In red instead of the traditional black. It had the
yeah,
ribbon going down the leg and everything.
yeah. I thought it was really smart. I really, really liked it. I don't know. Claudia's dress was nice. It was quite simple, with that bit of flair to it, and then coupled with her gold scrunchy boots.
They were cool,
I
weren't they?
didn't like the
Yeah.
boots. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
Like them. It gave me all the 80s vibes. I remember having seen people with those sort of boots where they were scrunched leather and they sort of slunk down, but maybe it was an 80s or 90s thing. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
with the gold accessories there, it just I thought great. But Tess certainly, look at her there, just looks fabulous.
yeah, absolutely stunning.
Although decidedly covered up for Tess.
I,
She's normally got a bit on show.
Judges,
I like them. The chaps always look dapper in their dinner jackets, but I liked both the women tonight. Not tonight, yesterday. They were very nice. I love
There was a lot
Mabutsi's
of
hair.
yeah.
Her hair
there
is
was a lot
always
of
magnificent.
colour coordination, I feel, this week, not only with them, but also with the dancers. There was a lot of these pinks and burgundies and plums sort of colours. There was a bit of a palette going on this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as always, we have to lose someone. We normally just touch on who went. I know we're here to talk about the costumes, but it's also just nice to talk about who went. So we had these two pairs up for eviction. I think everyone pretty much knew who was going to go. But first of all, a shock to see Fleur and Vito there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's a difficult one because obviously the public are voting, but when you've got so many to choose from, they were actually in what I consider the most dangerous position on the table because the people at the top, they might get voted for, but they've also been put at the top by the judges, so they'll probably be safe. And then the people at the bottom, they tend to be safe because people go, oh my God, they're in the bottom. So you're
Mhm.
actually in a really dangerous place if you're about 4 or 5 up from the bottom. Because people are too busy voting either for their favourite or for the people who are in the bottom. They overlook the people in the middle, and if they don't get enough votes, it doesn't counterbalance what the judges have done, and it sends them flying to the bottom in the final because they haven't had enough votes from the public. Which is why you should really vote for your favourite dance rather than thinking I want to save that celebrity.
Right.
Because I think that's why Fleur's ended up down there. She was in that middle, 4 or 5 from the bottom, and as a result of that, ended up in the bottom too.
Yeah. I definitely voted for her this week, I'll tell you that much. I was like, no, that can't happen again.
Yeah.
Her Argentine tango was amazing. So
But from I suppose a costume point and a dance point, Richie and Giovanni's were just they weren't there at all, were they? Really?
Well, I think we covered it last week. It was absolutely ridiculous. Even putting them in those costumes, it just made it even more difficult to dance. And it also shows how what was more important in that episode was the way they looked, not the way they danced. And
Yeah.
they totally used those costumes to override their ability to dance. I mean, they've got those huge things on their heads as well. And they were doing a samba where you want to be able to move your head around. And, they've got all of this on top holding them back. It was
Yeah,
ridiculous. They were onto a losing streak. As soon as they came out dressed like that, you just knew that
Yeah.
that wasn't going. That they weren't going to win.
yeah. And I thought as well, Giovanni, who's the professional, he looked entirely ridiculous in that big suit. Even he couldn't pull that off. And it's like,
No,
oh, you know,
Good point.
they really did him a disservice this year as well because he's out and he's a brilliant dancer.
Yeah. Yeah, so we lost Richie and Giovanni, sadly. So there we are. So, right, let's move into the costumes then of week 4. We've picked out some of our favourites, some of the good talking points, and we go straight into it. James and Amy and the Quick Step.
Well, look at that lovely dress there with all those godays sewn into the front there. You can see them all just waiting to be spun out when he twists around that save.
but his suit as well. His suit was lovely. I love that
Wasn't
plummy
it?
color. It was just they
And it
complemented
had a
each other so very well.
and that just lifted it rather than just being a plain,
Yeah,
plum suit. It had that kind of
that to it.
pattern on it.
Yeah, it almost looks like a nice check to it, or maybe that's my eyes playing tricks. I can never quite tell, but yeah, it looked really
I
well. It
wa-
lifted them both because it suits his coloring as well, so it lifted him as well.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't raining on him.
I wanted to say tartan because I think it's those thinner kind of hash
Yeah,
lines,
there you
but that's not the right word at all for the pattern. But it's that kind of thing. It's almost like a
Yeah,
hash across. I think.
And I know we've talked about this already briefly, but just before we met. This was one of quite a few that had an empty set, open space, no sort of clobber in the way, and they could just dance and enjoy the dance.
Yeah, and
yeah,
and that just goes to show the contrast with last week, where they were trying to ram as much set as they could onto that stage. But actually, they started on the steps. They did a little bit on the steps. They came down. Look, they're right
Yeah,
in that corner, and
yeah,
then they went from that corner to
yeah,
the other side of the dance floor and
yeah.
showing
yeah,
off what he could do. You don't need all of that in the way. If you want a little bit of height, you've got the stage in front of the band. You've got the steps. You can even dance above that at the top, above the band, if you want to
Absolutely.
do something. But then get onto that massive floor and use it and show off what you can do. And he's so tall as well. That suit fitted perfectly, but he
Didn't it?
also was then able to kind of be a head above her and leading around the dance floor. It just set everything off.
yeah. I very much agree. The pair of us were sitting saying as much last night, and the messages going, well, there's no faffing about. They just got on with it and they danced, and it was
Absolutely.
just beautiful to see. It was lovely to see with minimal fuss, and it just, yeah, it was lovely to
And
watch.
again, quick step, American Smooth, all of that. You're thinking Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. You could see Ginger Rogers in that dress when she spun and it came out. That's exactly what you want to see from those old Hollywood films.
But you say, look
It
at
was
it there. Look
interesting
at
to
that
see the front
shaping.
on that though, as a halter all the way down, so it was fitted all the way down rather than like a sweetheart neckline or anything. That it was lovely to see from the neck down to below her waist, where it then went out into the goatee. It was just lovely.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. Nailed that one for sure. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We've got Jade and Karen. Look at that.
Well, I like this because they're both in a dress and they're both that beading. I like the stonework in that is amazing, and they both
Yeah,
looked lovely, and it was
didn't
really
they?
really nice to see.
And
Well,
it
and
was
I think
an
that's
American
what
Smooth, wasn't it?
I think I don't know, but I
It
think
was,
that's
and
what
then
it has lacked the last couple of weeks is they tried to put them in something opposite to each other, and it hadn't really worked. Where here they've got a similar style dress, similar colours, and it just works perfectly. It just
Beautiful.
goes to show. I mean, they're not the same dress. There's a different. She's got sleeves on hers and everything, but it's the same basic style. It's that going from the bust, the frame going down, and it just worked.
Yeah,
And it just shows that it makes you wonder how much designer got into the last couple of weeks because they just didn't look right when they were dancing. Whereas
yeah.
tonight, or sorry, last night, they
Oh,
just it just worked.
absolutely.
yeah, it would
And
have been
was it?
nice to see Jane's dress a little bit longer. I think it was just a tad short, or maybe it was just for me because by comparison, Karen's
Mhm.
dress was that wee touch longer, where it's
Yeah,
just down to her ankles. You can see
see there.
there. I think it could
I
have done with being
imagine
just
with
slightly longer.
Jade being the non-dancer, you don't want it too long because you don't want to get your feet caught up in it. And
No,
I would imagine that was probably to help her
but
out a
down to
bit
the
there with
ankle
that.
would have been nice. Just, rather than like a good couple of inches above the shoe, just have it just slightly above the shoe so it wasn't going to get caught. Because all the other, like a lot of the other female dancers who've had long dresses, they are, that wee bit longer. So it looks a bit more graceful. It just, for me, it just stopped a wee bit too short. It felt like it wasn't quite, they went, run out of fabric, or it wasn't quite the right length by comparison for me.
You've not chosen a very flattering photo there.
Well, th-
She looks like she's just been shot.
when I go through, there are many camera angles when they do the analysis. So that's always the where they're standing next to Tess and they're listening to the judges. But it'll either cut to a close up of the two, and there is one angle that the directors will often use where you see them standing like that next to Tess, but they don't do it all the time. They literally cut to these two when I think Craig was talking about her thumb and she didn't have her thumbs out. She was like,
Yeah.
"Oh no." And it's like, oh, that's the only one I can get. But they don't always cut to that shot. But I like this angle because you get to see the whole costume, don't you?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very true.
I just thought this one really worked with song and color and how it combines together as a duo without the theme taking over. So the American Smooth was just able to breathe because again it was another one with no set, and they didn't go too much into the song idea. And it was just beautiful. It just was able to breathe on its own. It was obviously very emotional as well. I mean, you had these sparks coming out at one point, and these special effects
The
because
thing
it is a
is,
beautiful song.
the thing is, we're sat here going on about how wonderful it was this week and how there was no set and how she's done really well and the judges really liked it. But this is from a film. It's from Beaches. So why the hell wasn't that done in that same? They can do that, and
Yeah,
it looked wonderful with no set. They weren't dressed up as the characters from Beaches or anything like that. They just came on and did a
yeah.
dance to a song that happened to be in a film. If they'd have done that last week, not I don't mean Jade and Karen, but I mean a lot of them last week, then we wouldn't have had all this faff. They get too caught up on the theme. There was a couple of songs this week that were from films, and it just made me chuckle because they did so much better when they didn't have to worry about all the faff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll come to it later on, actually, because in our Vicky Gill section, because she actually did comment on a couple of them where she knew the theme and she knew the song, but she made it quite a deliberate point to say that she didn't concentrate on any of those themes other than the actual dance itself. And I think that's probably what she's done here. She's just concentrated on the dance and been inspired by the dance rather than being, persuaded by the things, which I think has worked completely, hasn't it?
Well, she won't
Yes.
take a note out of her own notebook then for the following week.
I think sometimes she gets overruled. I'm sure other people will say, or the lights will say something, or the director. I'm sure there are going to be many things to take into account.
More than likely.
But a wonderful one. Let's move on to Ellie and Nikita. This may be one to talk about with regard to theme. We had Smile, which is a great song from Shanice, and then we're at a dentist.
Yeah. I
Yes,
quite enjoyed
again.
it. I loved her dress. There was so much movement going on in
Yeah.
that, and with the movement of the skirt as well. I quite enjoyed it.
It was a good one.
Yeah, I was reading recently in a magazine about sizing for petite and how much they have to change to keep the proportions right, because even between the bodice, the skirt, and even with arms and everything else, because everything is going to be slightly different. You assume that if they're petite, maybe their arms are smaller, but that's not necessarily the case, and all this kind of stuff. So it's fascinating everything that goes into it when it comes to changing costumes for petite. Like, you have to completely shift the design. It's fascinating. It's worth a read. I read it in, I think it's the Sewing magazine or something along those lines.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Oh, yeah, I can
but
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating because they were talking about people from 5'2" and below. Because I thought, you just size everything down, you cut a chunk off the end. And it's like, that's not the case at all. You have to do the bodice, the skirt, the sleeve, everything, and then make sure it's in relation to the person that you're sizing it to and everything. Um, it's very involved. But
But
that's the standard pattern adjusting. So I'm guessing this is going to be different. But yeah.
The colours again, though, work. This reminds me of Helen's. Was it last week or the week before? That sort of Barbados blue, I think she called it. It's just beautiful, but it really the movement to it. Interesting on Nikita's colouring of shirt.
Yeah, it doesn't quite match. There was
I
one.
don't know why they didn't.
It's not the only one this week as well. I'm
No,
sure we can
there
talk about
was
that
another one as
later.
well with oh, his name's gone out of my head.
Matt
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Nadia. He had what looked like a dip dyed kind of red shirt, so it was a bit more of an ombre or a gradient. And then she was in
yeah.
a very bright, very clashing red, and it was like, why didn't you dip dye her dress to match his shirt? And it's the same here. That blue is not really in that dress.
No, not at all.
No.
It's more of a baby blue, and in the dress, it's more of a sky blue.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
even as you
it's
can see
almost
there
different
on
tone.
the set, it didn't even go blue under the lights. Actually, when you look at it, it's kind of more lavendery, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
It's
almost more
certainly more
cool tones than her dress. It seems
end,
warm.
yeah.
Yes, warm and cool. Yeah, but
But
lovely,
it was a lovely dress. Lots of movement. Did the job for me.
absolutely. And ultimately, that's what you want with a salsa, anyway, don't you? So,
Yeah,
so wonderful there.
plenty to shake.
So we're going to Ellie and Johannes now, which I think might cause an interesting discussion. So this is almost like theme week. This is the one where perhaps the theme has taken over and they've had a little challenge. Shall we do this? What do you think their thinking was here?
Oh, do you know what? I wanted to like her, but what this is telling me, the amount of sex, the amount of faffing around, look, she's there about to hit him with her crook and everything. That's because she can't dance. If she could dance, she'd fill that 90 seconds with dance. And so they've got all of that set there. They've dressed it in a ridiculous thing. And as I was watching it, I'm going, hang on, this is Lulu, Boom Bang a Bang. It's not even on a farm. Where the hell has this farm come from as this inspiration? It's got nothing to do with the song. And all it's done is whacked all of that set on there and dress. I mean, look at it. I mean,
It's
I'm
all
not disputing that it's probably not well made, but look at it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it looks muddy, like the sleeves and everything. That weird muddy green
Yeah.
with the clashing yellow, and then you've got the navies and the navy trim, and then the blue underneath. There's just so much going on, and then you've got the weird lengths where you've got like the apron style on the top, and then below that you have another length, and then below that you have another length.
Absolutely.
It
Good point.
just didn't work. It's almost like they've taken the underskirt and put it on the top, and yeah,
Well,
I
it
don't
would.
know.
I mean, well, I still wouldn't have liked it, but it would have worked if it was part of some sort of theme. If they were doing Oklahoma, then at least it. Well, I mean, I'd still be ranting about that, but at least it would fit with that. Like I said, as it went on, it was just like this has got nothing to do with the song. Somebody's just been given free rein to do what they like, and they've created a monster.
It seems like that, doesn't it? Yeah. But there's so much going on with that dress, as you said on here, isn't it? That green could have just still been the same of the gingham on the bodice and on the bottom there. The arms could have been in the gingham too. It's too much,
Yeah.
isn't there?
It's far too much. I would have taken the gingham off completely myself, to be honest. But it's the weird layering for me. I look at it and it's just really jarring to look at when you see it sort of standing. Like the bottom layer is in underneath, and then you have the next middle layer, and then it doesn't sit right. It looks really weird. And it doesn't
did
do her any favors when she's
No.
like it does move and it does have the fullness, but
Absolutely.
because it's so clashing, and then at the back you have the crisscross and the big bow, and it's like, and then the headdress. What?
Yeah.
What? It's almost like she fell into her wardrobe, and this is the order it came out in. You know what I mean? It's just, it looks weird.
What I can't
again-
understand is when you're analysing colour, what the thinking was with the yellow belt and the yellow trim, because that pops so much, your eyes just look at the belt and nothing else. Should that
Or maybe they
yellow
wanted
have...
to be back from her feet.
Hey,
But the thing is, I mean, you look at it there now. Everything when she's not moving, it just all of those layers hanging on top.
Yeah.
And this was a Viennese waltz, and yes, for a Viennese waltz, you want a full skirt. You're going round the floor. You've got the fleckles, you've got the turns. You're going a natural turn, and then your reverse turn. And while all of that's going on, that dress has got to come out and be wonderful and floaty. And it because it looked like we've got like a cotton on top of a voile on top of a net, it that didn't allow for that much movement either. And also, it just needed to be a floor length gown. This is a
Yes,
Yeah.
costume. This is a
bit short.
costume. It's not a gown.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you could have just had that lovely, like even picking the navy out, that navy would have been lovely just as a full length dress. And then you could have put the gingham apron over just as a little showpiece rather than this weird,
Good show.
it,
Absolutely.
yeah, just
And
too
they don't
much.
really match either, do they? The two don't seem to blend. I know he's perhaps supposed to be a farmer, but could he not been in the gingham shirt as well to match?
Well,
To be honest,
again, you'd
Johannes
want
is
a
much
bit of
better if he kept them all
coordination,
by
wouldn't you?
himself.
Say again, I missed that on you.
Sorry, I was just saying, I'd like to have Johannes as just all by himself. I was like, he looked
Yeah.
quite nice and simple.
Go on,
Yeah,
Tim.
but
What
that's
did
where
you...
you say if she'd just been put in a blue, like the blue of his shirt,
Yeah,
that they would have looked wonderful together.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
as you
it's too
say,
much. Too noisy.
that whole idea of theme, but you are right, I think, when you've got the beauty of Strictly is you've got these wonderful digital screens at the back. Now, when you've got the digital screens telling the story or setting the scene, like you have there, you can see where we are with the red barn. You know you're on the farm. Why do you need the set as well? That's the whole... You have one or the other, surely.
But why do you need any of it? You didn't see
Yeah.
any of that when James was doing his. The
No,
set just
no,
remained static.
you've just got that wonderfulness, haven't you, with James?
Just a sky in the background. It's not
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. It is.
Yeah,
It is
but it's one of
interesting.
those where maybe she just wasn't getting the dance, and it wasn't her week, and this was a way of distracting from not. It
I
had
think
that it had that filler at the start and everything. So
I think
Yeah.
she's in danger this week.
Okay.
mm.
Right. Let's move on to the next one then. Hamza and Jovita with.
This was amazing. I'm still getting over his overhead press. Oh my god!
Well,
And then
I've got
that was
got
amazing.
the footage coming up in a minute on you. We can have another relive of it in a little while.
It's a shame because I don't really want to see his. I want to see Anton's bit where he kind of summarised it in about 30 seconds.
That was brilliant. That was so good. But with this, her dress was lovely. I thought it definitely fit
Wasn't
the
it?
style of the dance. It had all the ruffly bits. His shirt though was just
We hated it, didn't we?
yeah.
It's
It's like a really baggy. It's another one where it looks like they've just gone into a shop and bought it off the rack, and then added like fair play. They added that bit on the back for his hair to help keep
Yeah,
that
I thought
from.
that was
that was
cool,
quite
wasn't
good.
it? You could see it
Yeah,
there how they've joined the hair to stop it flinging around.
In
yeah,
this dance, you needed that under control, or otherwise he'd have taken her out with it.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it was a sack on him. It wasn't.
yeah,
There was no attempt to fit it in any way, and and again, I know it was like a salsa. You've got all those Latin moves and everything like that. And he is a big guy, but it just didn't seem. And I didn't like the pattern on it either. I just
no,
felt that if they were picking the colours out to go on her dress, well, you still can't really see those colours. There's a bit of the orange there,
no.
but the purple isn't. It's that plummy colour again. There's a yellow. There's still that little bit of lack of coordination between the two outfits.
Yeah.
and look at that pattern
It's
matching on
those
the
where
front.
they went, oh, that'll kind of do. Let's nip into the shop and get it, and then
Yeah,
it's sorted.
And
I
then we'll just put a
wonder
bit of Rick Rack round her dress to keep it tying in.
the, the whole fit thing is interesting. I know some people may not like clothes fitting tightly because they don't perhaps want their figure to be seen that much. I wonder how much the dancer, the celebrity, has conversation-wise with the wardrobe team about I don't want a tight-fitting shirt.
But it doesn't need to be skin tight. That needed to be a couple of inches longer, and then taken in a little bit on the side, and I think that still would have looked very nice. It just frustrates me that, like Anya says, it looks like they've just bought it from a shop, and yet they make their costumes supposedly to measure every week.
Yeah.
And it just felt that there was just a little bit of fitting. We're not talking skin tight here, but there could have been a little bit under his arm. It seemed like there was a lot under his arm. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and it just looked too wide on him. It generally just looked too
Yeah.
wide. No.
Yeah.
So it meant that it looked like it's hanging off him there in weird places, and I don't think it does him any favors. It doesn't.
That's what
You
I'm
kind of
thinking about
lose
his
some of the
arm.
movement. Yeah, you kind of almost lose the movement of his body because it's been swamped by his shirt. You know what I mean? It's
But
kind of you're kind of losing some of that.
yeah, you're right. It does look off the shelf. When you look at the pattern, the shells at the top there, you've got half a shell where it's on the button here. Now, if you were making that properly, wouldn't you have done a shell and a shell there and worked it so there wasn't that awful cut off bit?
Yeah,
If
probably.
Well,
Considering we've seen them do it properly in the past, like we've seen them doing their pattern matching impeccably in the past.
indeed,
well, and that's where you have to ask: was it made or was it bought? Did they
yeah.
buy his and then try to make hers to fit, or if they did make his, then was it the work experience kid?
Yeah,
But the dance was phenomenal, and I
Oh yeah,
was
you can't.
literally blown away by the lift. So I've got it here for us to marvel over. We can also see the costume and the outfits in action. Here we go. Look at this. It was getting into. I mean, that's impressive. But here we go. The push,
look at that.
then a push and a drop,
And the
and now
throw.
And then chucked her
And
up,
then-
and why not? Just chuck her up, spin
Yeah.
her again, catch her.
and
Unreal.
the big glitter
I think,
finish.
I think what made it even more spectacular is that we'd just seen Tony and Katia, and he threw her around that stage like she was a sack of spuds. She had no chance, whereas this
Yeah.
seemed much more controlled.
Yeah, yeah. He was very much in charge, and that was at the end of the dance as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like part of the dance. This was
Absolutely.
at the end of the dance, and just did all this at the end. I was like, oh my god.
It was a phenomenal finish. It was like a big cheer, and obviously got good results for it. One of the best, if not the best. I can't remember who was
He
the
was
I
best.
think he
top,
had the
yeah,
highest
he was
score
at the
of the night.
top.
Yeah,
Was stunning, but interesting one to talk about costume wise, as we've just talked about. Right, let's go on to the stunning one, which I think blew many people away. Fleur and Vito with the
Well,
Argentine
see,
tango.
I think you've chosen this because their dance was absolutely phenomenal. The
Yeah.
costume was all right, but the dance was brilliant. I just couldn't. I could have watched that over and over
Yeah.
and over again.
yeah. But it was quite a classic Argentine tango sort of style outfit. We have him in the nice shirt and the
Yeah,
waistcoat, and then her
Yeah.
dress is very typical. Where it's that fitted. But it's got nice cutaway in her midriff as well, which is nice. Nice detailing, and the black and the red it all
Stunning.
worked so well.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it is a traditional Argentine tango dress. If you
Yeah.
go and look up any online, you will see that she is dressed as you would expect to see them. And again, it's that when they get everything right, they've got the right music, they've got the right costumes, both for him and for her. It just adds another layer to the dance. So
Yeah.
part of me was caught up with the whole atmosphere of this that
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have been able to tell you if they were doing anything wrong because it looked so right. I mean, you talked about that back screen, but that, again, very simple back screen there.
Yeah, look at
just
it.
the black and the reds with the fractured thing.
Yeah,
It didn't really
perfect.
do anything. It didn't need to.
No.
It's
Yeah.
that idea that the whole thing came together. Her look, the moves. I mean, the look at them there again. Although, again, slightly clashing on the reds.
Yeah. On
That
one
seems to be
side,
a theme.
yeah, I was going to say on one of her shoulders, it seems to match his. Am I just
Well,
seeing
I
it?
think looking at that red, I reckon Matt and him got their shirts muddled up. I reckon Matt should have had that red one on, so he matched
Good
Nadia,
point.
and Matt's dipped one would have worked better with
Yeah.
that dress there.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
I
is?
agree.
Let me
But
just-
Someone was
see, in the light,
sabotaging
you
them.
can see
Yeah, there's Matt. Can you
that
see
dim light
Matt?
though. Yeah, you see that they're completely different.
Yeah.
They're the wrong reds. They've got someone swapped them over. I reckon that was Giovanni trying to just sort them out after being eliminated.
Yeah,
This is
Vito
going to come.
decided he wanted a longer sleeve, so he just snuck off and swapped them.
Yeah.
This is going to come up again in the Vicky Gill section because she talks some little fascinating bits about this and which we talked about last week, Ting, with the Vicky Gill section, the battle between light designer and costume designer. So we'll come on to that in a minute. Well, there are main costumes that we've talked about. Let's go on to now then the Vicky Gill section, and some we've touched on already. Here is Johannes the farmer. That's the sketch. And what have we got here? I took some notes. So she designed it and she wanted to inject some colour into it. She said some pale blue, gold, and aubergine. But I think clearly, did the aubergine perhaps didn't make it from the look
Perhaps
of
he's underhand for aubergine.
But she said she wanted the classic double pleat for the ballroom trouser, or she said she might turn it into a kind of a breech style. And I think
Well, that's exactly what she's done, and that's
Yeah.
where it's all gone wrong. That you can see the buttons down; they're like the ones they made on the sewing bee.
Oh, yes, yeah, with the
With all
flap.
those buttons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she then said she'll
It
then
actually
see.
looks nothing like that picture. It looks nothing like that picture. She's changed that whole costume with 2 days to go, which good on her. But then I don't know if it was changed for the better, because maybe that costume would have looked better as the drawing.
Maybe she's toned it down because hers was so in your face that if his was as flamboyant as her sketch, maybe it would have been too much going on.
Possibly.
Well,
She said on that little section, she said they'll inject colour as soon as they know what Ellie is wearing. This is Thursday.
Well, so who designed Ellie's then? This is why they're not matching. There's no coordination. Somebody's got to sort this out.
Yeah.
This is getting ridiculous. If she doesn't know what Ellie's wearing by Thursday,
it does make you think, doesn't it? The next one, which she talked about, is Kim Samba. You can see her sketch there for Kim's, and then with the pop of colour in. And what does she say? Which was fascinating here. She said it's the samba and it has a 70s vibe. She knew there was going to have an airline theme, but this is where she said, which we talked about earlier, she decided to focus on the samba for inspiration, not the airline theme. She wanted bold colours, flame red and cerise pink.
Well, she definitely got the bold colours. I thought there was something wrong with my screen at one point. I was like, has the colouring gone weird? Because her dress was just glowing at me and I couldn't see it properly. But yeah, I loved it.
That was one of the reasons why I said we wanted to talk about this, because last week, in your absence, we found out about the lighting saying that only one person a week could wear white, which is ridiculous. But this just didn't work. When you text me, I know that you watch it on a device, but it was like my screen can't take it. My TV screen, you can see it here. That pink really fuzzed on the screen. It really didn't work under the lighting. And yet again, look at the colour. Him and her. Where's the coordinating pink? He's in a much more subdued. It just doesn't work.
No, her dress would have been much better, I think, in that lovely plummy colour. Maybe that's where the aubergine went. It would have been much better on her dress, I think, if they had
Maybe he's got Johannes' costume on.
Graziano's shirt is definitely 70s theme there, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, if you look at the drawing, her dress is nothing like that because it's shorter. It doesn't come down and flare out, and that hasn't got that bell kind of. And it looks like she's obviously got. Again, with the samba, you want a bit of. The top does. I'm not disputing the top does. Although it looks like there's no sleeves on the drawing, and she's got the sleeves on it there.
Yeah, but that's the close up.
Yeah. But I was going to say, it's kind of got those lines in the dress, and then it seems they've added a top on top of that with the sleeves. So it's kind of got it. And it is fitted just below her waist. You can sort of see where the fit is.
But my point is, Anya, this is Thursday, and that drawing looks nothing like that dress that's there. So, again, good on them to change it in that amount of time, but it does make you wonder why it wasn't dealt with earlier on in the week.
So Vicky goes to say this when she was talking. Graziano wants lots of movement in the skirt. So she's put the straight panel down the front. And with the 70s vibe, they may inject a 70s pattern once it's fitted on Friday. So I don't think they did that, did they?
No, I don't think it got the movement that he probably wanted. And a samba again, I mean, this is a costume because they're dressed up as airline stewards and stewardesses or whatever their flight attendants they're called today. But the samba, I mean, good on them. They did the samba rolls, which we hadn't seen for a while. But the samba should be that Brazilian carnival. It should have the feathers and it should have the boas and everything. Again, I'm using my age now, but you want to go back to Zoe Ball and Ian Waite's samba. That's the one you want to see if you're talking about. I always think of that one whenever I see a samba because it should be those rolls. It should be the feathers. It should be like you're at the Rio Carnival.
Yeah.
Well,
I have to say though, her dance was very good. I was really impressed with her dance in that.
Well, I've got some footage here because
we've got Faff, haven't we? We've got Faff at the start and Faff at the end. She didn't dance for the full time.
But she did for one who had a bit of faffing, she still managed to fit in a lot of dancing compared to some of the others who
were brilliant. You can't dispute that, but there was Faff.
Vicky says it was important that they got a lot of fullness in the skirt. She put 6 flared panels running from split to split, and hopefully she'll get lots of movement. I thought there was. Let's have a look at this and see what you think. Oh, no, it decides not to play. Why is that not playing? Oh, hang on. Autoplay. No, that's not playing at all. Well, there we go. You're going to have to imagine the
Yeah, because she twirled from one side across him, twirled out the other side, and came back and did that. So there was movement there. But I'm just trying to think. Generally, when you have, you can do that when you're flaring and you're spinning, it flares out. But when you're dancing about, you kind of want to have it sort of shimmy and shaking.
Which, if it was a traditional costume, think Notting Hill Carnival, it would be more as the bodysuit with the feathers coming out the back as like a tail, and there wouldn't be a big skirt to move around because the samba is all about the legs. Even the rolls, it's about getting your knees right up when you do those backward steps and everything. You don't want a skirt to get in the way.
Yeah. So generally, you'd have the dress moving almost every time you just took a step rather than having to spin or to flare it,
Yeah.
Oh, good old technology. Show we can't see that in action. But let's move on to the next one, which we've just touched upon. So Vicky shows us what Fleur's Argentine tango looks like. Now, this was the fascinating thing. She knew at this stage, right, that the graphics were going to be red and black. She wanted to work with the red side of it because she got told the graphics were going to be red and black. But, and this is the fascinating thing, in the week, so Wednesday, midweek? In the week, it was changed. So she had to move towards black. And you think, when you're making something, and that must be frustrating. So they've left the nude panels there, as you can see, because she doesn't know whether she's going to push it more black or whether she was going to push it more red because of obviously what was going on with maybe the set and the lighting. So they were going to change it to red or black on Friday. So you can see the nude arm there and that flap near her Vicky's arm there on the hip. And so we then get to the final performance, and they've clearly pushed it for red.
Yeah. Interestingly, looking at it in the studio, not actually on the picture, the red seems to match his shirt, but then in the studio, the red doesn't seem to match his shirt.
Yeah. It looks
but they seem to have layered on like crystals and some beading, so maybe that's darkened it.
Well, I don't know, because look, maybe it was replaced, because look at the slit on her thigh. I'm looking at it, the one on the right, where the black and the red meet. They actually come apart. Spot. Where if you look at the one in the middle, it's sewn down. There's a join there.
Yeah.
They've
And the same
replaced
with
it.
the one on the other hip. It goes all the way up where this doesn't. So it makes me wonder whether that red was taken off completely. Because even her arm does not match his shirt.
No, the
Where it
one
does.
that her arm is linked through, it looks a closer.
Yeah, but look
That
at her
seems to be the
shoulder.
closest.
Her shoulder.
I know,
It
but it's
could
closer. Well,
it could be the studio lights. The studio lights with It Takes Two in the middle there might be showing that redder
It could
because
be, but then look at he's got that bright red shirt on. It should match that, and it looks like it
yeah.
should when it's in the It Takes Two studio.
I just think
yeah,
it's fascinating. You know, she wanted to go for that idea of going to work towards red and then being told, right, no, you've got to move to black, or now not knowing what you're going to work towards, you've got to wait till Friday. That stress of making costumes, could you cope with that?
yeah. No, thanks. No.
Well, it was your job.
Yeah, yeah. If it was my job, you get on with it. But clearly, you would be trained to deal with that kind of situation, and it would be fine.
Nancy's rumba was the last one to come off the mannequin. I know, Ting, you liked this one, didn't you? Well, you both did. You both said it looked phenomenal in the chat.
Well, I think Anya preferred it more because I didn't like him.
Vicky
I
says,
quite like it because I like the blue, and I like the complementary of the blue fringing with his blue shirt.
absolutely. Yeah, that little echo just marries the two perfectly, doesn't it? Vicky said
Yeah.
this is a simple rumba shape. The fabric is a navy blue background with a metallic gold weave through it, and the aurum crystals woven through, and then the gold lining and the blue lining underneath just makes it look quite exquisite. As a close up here, look at that.
Yeah. But when it was finished as well, they added. Am I right in thinking they also added blue fringing, or am I making that up?
Yeah, it was on the bottom. You can just see
Yes.
it behind your head there. Yeah, that
I
echoed
think
his
I'm making
shirt,
that's gonna
didn't
help.
it?
Well, at least they got
Yeah,
those colours the same.
Yeah,
yeah, and that makes the difference. That's the difference in when they're paired really nicely. They both complemented each other really well. I thought it looked lovely.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
again, it's the traditional rumba dress. It's
Yeah,
the asymmetrical, the slit all the way up one side and the low down off the shoulder. Again, it's a traditional dress. You don't have to worry about it. No faff needed. Get on with the dance.
yeah.
Yep.
So, lots to talk about there. Some cracking dances, as cracking costumes, outfits, and who do we think is going to go?
Oh,
I mean, it was difficult this week because a lot of them had stepped up their game, and I think Craig said as someone taken some dancing pills because the standard had shot up.
Yeah.
Um, I think Ellie is in trouble because of the overall presentation of it. I still don't think Matt has got the hang of it. Tony is clearly being supported. I mean, he got better. I'll give him the due. He got better, but he's still not up there with the rest of them that are there. So I think those three we've got to keep an eye on, maybe. But then equally, as I was saying at the start, because there's so many still involved, that middle bit is always something to worry about. In that you get another Fleur incident like we had last week.
yeah. I agree.
To
But we
finish,
voted, didn't we, Anya? We did our voting.
Yeah.
well, let us know what you think in the comments. As always, what was your favourite costume, outfit? Which was your favourite, Anya? Overall, looking back, what was your favourite one?
Oh, I don't know.
Too many.
I like. Yes. Which was yours? You never said who you thought was going to leave. You always do this. You ask
Oh,
us and you
yeah.
don't say.
I think my favourite was the Fleur, that tango. It was stunning how it just moved.
That was my favorite dance. Her dance and Hamza's dance. They were my favorite.
I was going to say, you can't even remember all their names.
Let us
No.
know in the comments what you liked and what you thought about it. And don't forget, It Takes Two on Thursdays is when Vicky Gill's on there talking about the costumes, and it's always great. So until next week, week 5, we will see you then. Cheers, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.